This is the town of Hancock's first BioBlitz. I'm really excited to have shared this with the Conservation Commission. The Harris Center has jumped on board to help sponsor the event and get the word out. And the goal of this event is to document as many species as possible in 72 hours. So from midnight after Thursday into Friday, going all the way until midnight on Sunday, as a community, folks who live in Hancock and other people who might be visiting during this weekend, our collective goal is to identify as many species as possible. A, it's a lot of fun. B, we get to spend more time outside and learn new things about nature. We might learn the name of a plant that we've been seeing for decades, but never knew what it was called. And next, we might find some rare species, which would be good to alert the Conservation Commission to, so that they know how to better steward and protect those species that might be on town lands or on Harris Center lands. And we can better document the overall biodiversity of what's in town. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll show you a couple of iNaturalist projects. So iNaturalist is an international database for observations of the natural world. It's based on organisms, both wild and cultivated. The BioBlitz this weekend will be focused only on wild species, things that have not been planted. But it could be something that's on one of your garden plants. That's all included in this BioBlitz. So here's the iNaturalist project page. You can see this little countdown clock counting down the minutes and seconds until Friday. I've been planning this for weeks now. I've got a plan in place for Friday after work ends to go out and start photographing things. So we'll talk about planning for planning your BioBlitz adventure a little later on. When you pull up this page on your computer, or you can search for it through the app. If you have a question about how to do that, let me know later on. When you pull up this page, there'll be a little join button in the top right-hand corner. I encourage you to click on that and you'll get updates through the iNaturalist app or in your email whenever I post in the project journal. So I might highlight the 100th species of the weekend or the 200th species, or highlight certain really beautiful photos that people have taken during the BioBlitz. So if you want to stay in tune with those updates, make sure you join the project either through the web or through the app. So currently, in the town of Hancock, using iNaturalist, we've documented just over 1,600 species, which is really, really incredible. It's one of the best documented towns in the entire state of New Hampshire, at least in the iNaturalist database. So this is another iNaturalist project you're more than welcome to join to keep tabs on. But I wanted to explore with you some of the species that we've seen here in town. So I'll post this link in the chat as well, in case you want to explore alongside me or on your own. So again, this is a link to the Hancock Biodiversity Project, or the Living Field Guide. And this is a record for most of the species found in town. Not all of them are put on iNaturalist. So these species are listed in order of their frequency of detection, how many times they've been observed in town. Of course, there's the gorgeous rosy maple moth here, very common moth. Eleanor and I saw a couple of those in the past week or so.
Can we assume, Stephen, that with 84 observations of the rosy maple moth, it's either really popular or really intriguing, or one person is very fascinated with it?
Absolutely. And so there is a certain human bias when it comes to iNaturalist. I don't go around and take pictures of ants all day, but ants are one of the most abundant insects that are in town. I am more intrigued by things with wings, so dragonflies and moths and birds. And so a lot of those species are in the top 100 for town. And so that's okay. When scientists use iNaturalist data, they take that bias into account. And so you don't need to photograph everything. Just photograph what you're interested in or what's new to you, and it'll still be useful. So last summer, I started documenting all of the Japanese knotweed along roadsides in Hancock just in case the Conservation Commission wanted to organize a knotweed cleaning party, I started to map out all those locations, and that's why it's the most documented plant in town, just because I studied it intensively in the southeastern corner of town. And so through iNaturalist, you can not only get a record of which species are present, but we can also look at where those species are present. So I'll pull up this growing map of Japanese knotweed for the town of Hancock. We'll take a look at the map here. And so it certainly exists in more places than just where the green pins are on the map. But these are the places that I and others have been able to get to. And so one of the goals for this BioBlitz is to help better document the distribution for even the common species in town. So there's an example map for just one species. Would anybody like to see if a particular species has been seen in the town of Hancock so far? If you do, go ahead and type it into the chat and I'll search for it. Okay, let's look for bobcat here in Hancock. It's been seen twice. Once over on Peterborough Road, looks like a track found during the winter, and some bobcat scat documented near Mount Scatutucky. So we know there's more bobcat. There's probably more than 2 bobcat here in town, and it's probably they range all over town, but they're scarcely seen, so therefore they're scarcely documented. Emerald ash borer. Let's see if that's been documented in town so far. It has not been. So that could be a potential gap. If you're out this weekend and you see sign of emerald ash borer, certainly document that in iNaturalist. That would be a good record to know for town, for the Town Conservation Commission.
So does even a sign of a species like that qualify?
Great question, Phil. It does.
Okay.
So it has to be a living species or a sign of that living species. So it could be an animal track in the sand or mud. It could be an empty wasp nest. It could be a carcass or a roadkill organism. It could be part of a wing of a luna moth after it was eaten by a bird. So it could be any sign of an animal as well. All right, Pat is suggesting a fisher. Let's take a look for that. No fishers documented yet in Hancock. In fact, we don't have any animal in the weasel family documented in Hancock. And I know they're here. We just have yet to get a photo of one. So if you have a game camera or a trail camera that you can put out in the woods, this might be a good, pardon me while some furniture falls over behind me. It might be good to document that, or scat as well. Scat can be a good sign. So we need to get Susie Spickle out there this weekend to see if she can find anything. Great. Any other animals people would like to search for briefly?
Porcupine.
Porcupine. Wonderful. I know a couple have been seen in Hancock. I did just post photos of one over at the Harris Center a couple weeks ago. So it's been seen 10 times in Hancock, but during a BioBlitz, everything starts at 0. And so these would be additions for the town-wide project, but for the BioBlitz, our species tally starts at 0. So if you see a porcupine, document it, even though it's been seen in Hancock before. My personal goal for the BioBlitz this upcoming weekend is to find over 500 species in 3 days. And I think as a community, it's certainly possible. We have a diversity of habitats here in town. Therefore, there's a diverse array of species. Question from Pat: if you hear a porcupine but don't see it, that counts as well, but you'll need to get an audio recording and submit that to iNaturalist. And you're able to do that through the iNaturalist app. Instead of submitting a photo observation, you can make a sound recording through the app and submit that as your observation as well. Great question. Those audio recordings are really great for birds as well, which can be difficult to take photos of on your phone. Common nighthawk, Not documented in Hancock via iNaturalist. There's lots of common nighthawk records in eBird and perhaps other community science platforms, but this weekend we're primarily using iNaturalist for the BioBlitz. So that would be a new record for the town's iNaturalist project.
That said, about the difficulty with detecting birds with a high quality photo, what would you say, where would you encourage people to submit those observations, or how to pay attention to the birds that we do see this weekend?
Yeah, great question. So if you're able to get a photo, even if it's blurry, still put it on iNaturalist. There's a lot of naturalist and birder experts who are on iNaturalist and can identify birds even from a blurry photo. So even if it's not a crisp photo, that's okay. A lot of naturalists are not expert photographers, me included. And so I'll submit photos that might be a little bit blurry, but you can still identify the key characteristics needed to identify that thing. And fortunately, Phil, common nighthawks have a really distinctive shape even when they're a mile away. And so it's okay to submit a grainy photo. There's nothing else it could be mistaken for, at least this time of year. Great question.
Right. That'll be my goal, if nothing else.
Okay, so I wanted to share with folks a couple more links. This one here is iNaturalist Getting Started page. It talks about what is an observation, how to submit observations from an iPhone versus an Android, and then how to submit photos through the web as well. So I'll share some videos just in just a second, but I want to make sure everybody has this link as well. So this is the Getting Started page if you're brand new to iNaturalist. It's just a quick read and you'll learn iNaturalist 101. Okay, so up next, we'll watch this short video on how to take photos using iNaturalist.
So you've installed the iNaturalist app and created an account. Time to get outside and record your first observation. Here's how to do it. Any living thing, like a plant, animal, or fungus, can be an observation on iNaturalist. Once you find something you'd like to record, just tap Observe and take a photo. You can review your picture, then hit Next if it looks good. To identify it, hit What did you see? If you have an internet connection, iNaturalist will suggest 10 visually similar species and often a common ancestor. You can choose one of those or search for a species name. On this observation details screen, you can add more photos of the same organism or write a note. The date, time, and location have been automatically added. You can also change the geoprivacy of the observation, mark whether it's captive or cultivated, or add it to a project. Once you're finished, just hit Share and your observation will be uploaded for everyone to see and identify. That's it. Keep on exploring and sharing.
Okay, so pretty simple. I know the narrator talks a little quickly. So once you've downloaded the app, click the Observe button. You'll have an option to take a photo or take an audio recording or choose a photo from your phone's photo library. So even though it won't count for the BioBlitz, if you wanted to upload photos that you took a year ago or multiple years ago, those are still valid iNaturalist observations, and they might count towards the Town of Hancock project. Only observations made on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday will count towards the BioBlitz specifically. So it's a great way to upload historic images to iNaturalist. I got my first camera in 2008, but I didn't learn about iNaturalist until 2018. So I had 10 years of photos to go through to find pictures of bugs and birds and all those things. And I just completed going through those 10 years of photos to upload into iNaturalist. So it was really exciting to actually find names for what it was that I had photographed in California 8 years ago. So it was great to relive those moments and see them in a new perspective by using iNaturalist. So that's how to make an observation through the app, which is great if you can approach your organism closely, like a plant or an insect that doesn't have wings. So this next video is how to take better photos using iNaturalist. So if there's any photographers in the room, this will all come very naturally. If you're new to photography, this video has some helpful tips. So there you have it. Get closer, take multiple photos from different angles, and try to make sure your photos are in focus. A lot of times, if you've come across a plant that you don't know what it is, it's helpful to take photos of the flower, of the leaves, and the stem. So one photo up close and then another one back where you can see the shape of the entire plant. If you're new to identifying mushrooms, a photo of the top, a photo of the side, that includes the stem, and a photo of the underneath of the cap of the mushroom can be very helpful for mushroom identification. I just learned the other day, if you're taking photographs of wasps, a photo of the back and the face is particularly helpful for identifying those. So when in doubt, take several photos from different angles and try to make sure that they're in focus. And you'll have better luck getting a positive identification when you do that.
Even those tips are really helpful. I wonder, is there a central location for, what angles to get of spiders or wasps, things that we may not be familiar with?
There isn't, but I'm slowly building one, at least not that I know of. I'm slowly building my own version of that in my head, and one of these days I'll put it on paper to share with others. But it just takes asking people on iNaturalist. So I'll put up a photo of a spider and say, I don't know what this is. And somebody will say, oh, it's this. And I'll ask, well, that's great, but how could you identify it from my photo? What should I photograph in the future so that identification is a little easier? And it's just a matter of asking experts on iNaturalist, and they're really great about sharing with you what angles to take in your photographs, and maybe even sharing an online guide so you could work through a taxonomic key for deer flies, which I just found a couple months ago. So guides exist, and experts are there to help you. Yeah, any other questions about photographing organisms for iNaturalist?
Are you going to cover how to choose the species? You were mentioning sometimes you just don't know what it is. Is it better to put down, I don't know what this is, if that's an option, or select something that you think is similar?
Great question. So when you submit an observation to iNaturalist, it's best to put what's called a high-level identification if you don't know what it is. So don't leave it as unknown. Simply say plant or insect or fish. Those are perfectly fine. If you can add one of those higher level identifications, it allows the fish experts on iNaturalist to find your observation quicker and then add an identification to help you figure out what it is. If you really don't know what it is, it's better to do that high level identification guess than guessing a specific species. Because if you're wrong, some people's egos feel a little bruised if they have to be corrected and say, oh no, it's actually this. So iNaturalist will often make suggestions. Those suggestions are usually accurate, but not all the time. So when in doubt, just put plant or flowering plant or fish. mammal, those are all satisfactory if you don't know what it is. Great question, Phil. So this next video is for people who want to use their actual cameras. If you have a digital camera and you'd like to use it during the BioBlitz, digital cameras are great. They often take, well, not anymore, but they used to take higher quality photos than most people's smartphones. And you can also have a camera with a telephoto lens, which is great for taking long distance photos of birds and things that might be farther away. So this next video, it's almost 3 minutes, is how to upload videos from your desktop. So if you're taking photos on your camera and you can transfer those to your computer or iPad, you can then upload them through the web. So this is one of my preferred ways to upload photos.
This video is a quick introduction to our web uploader, which allows you to upload, combine, and batch edit photos and sounds, then submit them to iNaturalist. I've got a few photos and a sound I'm going to use as examples, so let's get started. To get to the uploader, I can click on the green upload button in the header. And from here, I can drag and drop the photos I want to upload, or choose them from a menu. I'll go with the former option for this video. Once I've dragged in my photos and sounds, iNaturalist will import each one as a card in the main workspace here. Keep in mind the photos have not been added as observations in iNaturalist just yet. That won't happen until you hit the green Submit button in the upper right-hand corner. We recommend not adding more than about 50 files at a time to the uploader page. Now that the observation cards are all in my workspace, I can start editing their information. I can edit a single observation by clicking on it and entering information either directly on the card or in this area on the left-hand side. You'll see that geoprivacy, captive cultivated, tags, projects, and observation fields are all on the left-hand side as well. To add an identification, I can click in the species name field and iNaturalist will suggest visually similar species. Or I can begin typing in a comment or scientific name and choose from the drop-down menu. There's no sound recognition software on iNaturalist, so you'll have to type in the species name. To add or edit location information, I'll click on the location space here. You'll see that a location editor pops up and I can type a place into the search bar at the top. Note that this will not search iNaturalist curated places, it's simply a Google Maps name search. And from here I can pick a point and drag these control dots on the circle to show the accuracy level of my location. Once I'm done here, I'll click Update Locations to get back to my workspace. If you often make observations at the same location, such as a dive site or your backyard, you can save it to your account as a pinned location. Once you have the correct coordinates, accuracy, geoprivacy setting, and notes in these fields, click on the Pin button and the location will be saved. You can access it by clicking on your pinned locations right here. Now, these two photos are the same organism, so I want to combine them into one observation. I can either select them both and click Combine up at the top, or drag one card into the other and voila, they've been merged into one. I'd already added location and species name in the photo's metadata, which iNaturalist has read, so that's all taken care of. Finally, let's say I want to batch edit my cards. I can select certain cards with my mouse, or hit Select All up at the top. Once I've selected the observations I'd like to edit, I can use the forms on the left-hand side to do so. Anything I enter on the left-hand side will affect all the cards I have selected. Now that I've edited everything I want to here, I just have to hit Submit and they will be added to the iNaturalist database. I hope this video will help you streamline your workflow. Happy iNetting!
Okay, so those are the instructions to add photos from your iPad or desktop. And if you want to watch any of these videos again, I just posted the link in the chat here. And there's more instructional videos that you can watch as well. But those are the three most important ones you'll want to refer to for the BioBlitz. There's also the iNaturalist help page. If you have any basic questions about what iNaturalist is, who runs it, what the data can be used for, and so on, there's always the iNaturalist help page, which I've just posted in the chat as well. There's also great resources for teachers and community members who might be using iNaturalist for various projects or to work in the classroom. So they have those guides as well. All right, I'd like to pause to see if there's any questions at this point before I talk a little bit more about the BioBlitz this weekend.
You mentioned trail cameras that, you know, that you hope someone would catch a fisher, or I forget which one we were talking about. So how would you use, I guess you would download the pictures from the trail cam and then enter them online like you just showed here?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yep, that's the exact same process. You'll
Okay.
upload them. Well, first you move them from the camera to your computer, then upload them through iNaturalist.org, and then make sure the location is the location where the camera was.
Right.
It's as
Okay.
simple as that.
All right.
And
Thanks.
so this initial informational meeting is to get people excited and pumped up about the BioBlitz this weekend, give them an introduction to iNaturalist. If you have any questions, or if you're struggling Friday and Saturday, we're going to have an in-person field training at the Harris Center on Sunday. That'll be from 9 to 11 in the morning. We'll start with a BioBlitz update, see what our species tally is at for the weekend so far, and then we'll go out together as a group and practice in person. So if you have any questions by Sunday morning, certainly attend that in-person meeting and I can answer them all then. If you really want an answer to a question sooner, you can reach out to the Harris Center. My email might be available as well. I'm happy to answer any of those questions to help you with a smooth BioBlitz experience.
So I have a question, Steven. Can I
Go for
ask
it, Eleanor.
right
Absolutely.
now? So I'm on the Hancock BioBlitz 2022 page, and it doesn't have anything like that night's picture and everything. It just has observation 0, species 0, observers 0. You know, oh, I should do about maybe. Okay, there's a whole lot about, and then news. I don't know where that, and join.
Yeah, so
But-
click the join button if you
Okay.
want to get the occasional project updates I'll be posting throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
What I'm viewing here on my screen and sharing with everybody, this is the web browser version of the same project. The
Oh,
app should have a little charcoal sketch of an eastern hemlock branch.
yes. Yeah.
And so that's the icon I've chosen for all Hancock related projects. And so this project on the web and what you're viewing on the app are the exact same thing. And I'd say by 3 a.m. on Friday, I'll have some observations posted and they'll be visible in the app. And so you'll be able to scroll through all the recent observations that folks are sharing to the project. And in the news section, that's where you can stay abreast of the project journal to read
Okay.
about particular observations that I've highlighted.
Great.
Excellent. So again, we're counting down the days, hours, minutes, and seconds until the project starts. We don't see any observations in this project yet because we haven't passed midnight on Thursday night. But once that happens, we'll see species start to accumulate. We'll have tallies and top observers and all sorts of fun statistics and ways for you to engage with the project. There's also a map of Hancock, and as the observations come in live time, you'll be able to see where those observations have been made, and maybe you could prioritize a section of town that hasn't been documented yet during the BioBlitz. So if you wanted to venture out of your backyard, you could head over to the Harris Center or a town property, or perhaps a friend's house where they've given you permission to post to iNaturalist from their property. Those would be all be great places to explore. So I'm going to share. Oh, go ahead, Phil.
Just quickly, from the perspective of the Conservation Commission, the town of Hancock has several choice properties. Maybe you'll be going into those later a little bit more specifically, but Elmwood Junction comes to mind with a newer trail system, the Prospect Hill Forest, Juggernaut Pond. And
Great, yeah.
anything
So
else you wanted to mention?
Phil, I think you've listed most, if not all, of the ones that I'm gonna hit on. So this beautiful drone shot of Norway Pond is one of the places that's fairly well documented within Hancock. I and others did a lot of iNaturalist work there and in Kempner Meadow last summer. But I've only been there once this year. And so maybe new species have moved in, a different time of year, other insects and plants might be more visible than they were during midsummer. Okay. So just a quick overview of what's been found in Hancock so far. We recently passed the 1,600 species threshold, which is really exciting. This includes 81 birds, 12 amphibians, 8 reptiles, only 2 fish species. So I told Phil to go fishing this weekend with his kids. If you know anybody else that has a fishing permit, send them out in town and take photos of what they're finding. A lot of these observations are biased towards me since I do a lot of iNaturalist work in town. So there's a lot of insects and a lot of spiders, but more and more, there's so many species out there. My goal for the weekend, I think I mentioned this earlier, is 500 species in 3 days. And I think as a group, we'll be able to hit that target. It'd be really great to do 720 species, which would be an average of 10 species for every hour of the BioBlitz. So fingers crossed. I plan on inviting some other iNaturalist users from throughout New Hampshire to come on down and help us out. So we'll see how we can do with that goal. A couple priority areas if you want to explore somewhere other than your own backyard. I have separate iNaturalist projects set up for most of the town-owned properties and a number of the Harris Center properties in town. So of course, if you don't want to venture out, just stay home if you live in Hancock, and that's fair game. All those observations will count. So certainly see what's kicking around in your gardens or your backwoods lot, or even the roadsides where turkeys have been very frequent this time of year, eating lots and lots of insects. For town-owned land, there's Norway Pond and Kempner Meadow, very accessible. Pretty flat land. There's a couple trails you can head down as well, or hop in a boat and go out into Norway Pond to see what fish or aquatic plants or invertebrates are there. Juggernaut Pond is a beautiful hike. I've only been there once. I can't wait to get back there again. There's a lot of beautiful ecosystems out there. Elmwood Junction, again, another very accessible and recently cleared path that the Conservation Commission did last week or the week before. Another beautiful location. Supposedly there's Virginia Rail in the marsh there. I'd love to get an audio recording of that for the BioBlitz. Cranberry Meadow and Walcott Forest is another great property. Pretty diverse habitat between the wetland and upland forest there. And then the Prospect Hill Conservation Easement off of Prospect Hill Road. There's a trail entrance on the southern end. That's a really underexplored part of town. And then there's a couple Harris Center properties. There's, of course, the Harris Center headquarters right off of Kings Highway. To the east is the East Side Trails. They go all the way to Route 123. A lot of observations of fungi and trees in that neck of the woods, but not a lot of insects or mammals documented on that property. And then there's the West Side Trails heading up to Jack's Pond, Thumb Mountain, and Mount Scatutucky. Really great diverse forests up there as well. So if you're looking for a place to explore in town, here's a sampling of publicly accessible properties that you could visit. In terms of taxonomic groups, Phil asked me to go through what's been seen in Hancock so far and try to find some of our weak spots. Fish comes to mind immediately. Only largemouth bass and brook trout have been seen in town, but I know there's at least a dozen other fish species. So let's see how many we could find this weekend. Aquatic and wetland plants seem to be a little underdocumented as well. Of course, there's pickerel weed and American white water lily and a couple other common plants that we have documented, but there's probably a number of bladderworts and milfoil potentially, and other aquatic plants that are in town, but we have yet to discover. Aquatic invertebrates, if you have any kids that like to play with crayfish or dig around for mussels or clams or snails, this would be a great opportunity to engage them in that sort of activity. Birds, there's a lot of birds in town, but they're dang hard to get a photo of. So you can practice with the audio recording feature through the iNaturalist app, or get out your telephoto lens for your camera if you have one to try to document some of those birds. Fungi, it's going to take me at least another 50 years before I'm a mushroom expert. So if you know any mushroom experts, please invite them to town this weekend. We'd love to help them identify and photograph what sorts of mushrooms and other fungi we have here in town. Mammals, I mentioned a weak spot in that area a little earlier with weasels. We don't have anything in the weasel family documented in Hancock. Of course, there's a lot of crepuscular and nocturnal mammals that are hard to document when we're sleeping. So setting out some sort of game camera for the weekend could be a great way to find a bobcat, or maybe that elusive mountain lion that some people insist live in New Hampshire. So you never know until you're getting out there with a camera. Herbaceous plants is one of my personal weak spots. So if you are familiar with your plants, or if you have friends who know your Newcomb's Field Guide, head out and photograph those and all the right things you need to photograph when it comes to identifying herbaceous plants. One of my last slides here before I wrap up and have another break for questions. When it comes to BioBlitzing, the goal is to document as many species as possible. So one of the key things I recommend is getting to as many different habitat types as possible. So this is from the 2020 New Hampshire Fish and Game's Wildlife Action Plan. These are the different general habitat types here in Hancock. We have a couple major bodies of water, from Norway Pond to Newbanoosuc Lake, Powder Mill Pond, and the Kentucky River. A lot of our upland forest consists of hemlock, hardwood, pine. That's sort of our default southwestern New Hampshire forest. But once you hike up towards Mount Scatutucky and Mount Thumb, you head more into that northern hardwood conifer, more yellow birch and red spruce in those sorts of habitats. And those plant species in those higher elevation habitats have different insects, different birds, different mammal species that can also be found. And then closer towards the river, we start to transition more into Appalachian oak pine, more of a southern forest habitat, more associated with the seacoast or Massachusetts. So you might find things like shagbark hickory, maybe a couple American chestnuts here or there, a number of other drier sandy soil plant species. A couple of different wetland types scattered throughout town. There's the open water associated with larger bodies of water. And there's a couple of northern swamps hidden around town. If you happen to live near one, I encourage you to spend a decent amount of time in your swamps and wetlands to see what critters are there. A couple of peatlands here and there, not too many on public land, unfortunately. But if you happen to live near one, or if you know somebody who owns part of a peatland, certainly get out and explore those areas. Meadows and agricultural fields as well are great places to find different kinds of insects, as well as roadsides. If the traffic's not too fast, avoid 123 if possible, but get out the edges of the pavement. Phil and I were talking about certain ant species that like to hang around pavement before the meeting started. So get to all kinds of diverse habitats. Swing by fiddleheads to pick up the house sparrows or house finches in downtown. So it's good to visit our quote unquote suburban parts of Hancock. Great, and I'll end, and we'll have plenty of time for questions. I'll end with a couple iNaturalist and BioBlitz tips for you to consider for the weekend. When you're submitting an observation to iNaturalist, it should only consist of one organism. So you can include multiple photos, but make sure all those photos are of just one Japanese beetle or one marsh marigold plant. Don't submit a painted trillium in the same observation as a white ash tree. You can split those into two separate observations. Phil and we all talked about this a little earlier on. The high level identifications, for example, plant, is better than unknown. You'll get an identification on that much sooner than you would if you left it as unknown. One of the best things I love about iNaturalist is that you don't need to know what you're looking at in order to share it with other naturalists in the database. And that's how I've gotten to learn so much about my insects and plants and fungi, even though I'm not an expert. I'll post it and say, this is a plant, that's the best I can do. And somebody will come in and say, oh, yes, of course, that's a Canadian bunchberry or a hobblebush. And so it's a great way to learn not just your common species, but also your uncommon species. Again, multiple in-focus photos from different angles are very helpful when it comes to identifying different organisms, especially if you don't know what it is you're photographing. I encourage all of you to at least attempt one audio recording using the iNaturalist app during the course of the weekend. It's great. The red-eyed vireos are still singing, believe it or not, even though it's August. So you could try recording one of those canopy-dwelling birds, or perhaps an odd noise that you hear at 10 o'clock at night. Even though there's a small chance you'd be able to find it and see it and photograph it, you should be able to get an audio recording to submit with the app. I've been doing this all summer, and it's a great way to see a diversity of life in your own yard is to keep your outdoor lights on until you go to bed. I'll turn them on about 15 minutes before sunset, eat dinner, brush my teeth, and then go outside, see what moths have appeared, and then turn them off before going to bed. So stay up for an extra 5 minutes to take out your iNaturalist app and take photos of what comes to your house during those early nocturnal hours.
Stephen, let me ask, can you talk more about turning off your lights before going to bed? I notice sometimes if I forget to turn the light off outdoors, there'll be so many moths in the morning, even more than I would have seen by 10 o'clock at night. Would you recommend that strategy?
Great question. Since this is an official BioBlitz, you could leave your lights on all night. And then you can document what moths show up after you go to bed in the morning. The downside to leaving your lights on all night is that the early morning birds will come and eat a lot of the moths if they're still there in the morning. So during just a normal day and night, I'll leave my lights on until I go to bed, then turn them off to give the moths time to disperse. So it's not a big buffet for the birds in the morning. But since this is a BioBlitz, if you want to leave your lights on all night, you could, and then you could shoo the moths away so that the birds don't eat them. So something to consider.
Thanks a lot for clarifying.
Yeah. If you have friends who live locally, or you know some people who might be experienced with iNaturalist, or really anybody, invite them to Hancock. Not only is the BioBlitz going on as a Old Home Days event, but there's the parade, there's a 5K road race, there's meals for the community. So it's a great time to be in the town of Hancock this weekend. So certainly invite friends and family to swing by. And if you can convince them to participate in the BioBlitz, it'll be worth it. When it comes to iNaturalist, be respectful of others. If you happen to disagree on an identification, that's okay. It's a great learning environment to not only learn from your mistakes, but perhaps to point out the mistakes of others. So just know that people have their best intentions when they make an identification. And if they're wrong, you can be gentle about pointing that out to them. And then lastly, I mentioned this earlier, but if you want to click the join button on iNaturalist, either through the app or the web, once you've found the Hancock BioBlitz 2022 project, you'll get the journal or project updates as they post them throughout Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you don't want to get those updates through the app, you don't need to join the project. Your observations will still be shared with the project automatically. Alrighty, so we have a couple minutes left. We have a small group, so I think we have enough time to get to questions if there are any remaining.
I do have a question. Has anybody seen leeches?
Oh, good question. I don't believe so off the top of my head. I will do a quick search as we move on to the next question, but off the top of my head, I don't think we've documented any leeches in Hancock so far.
I know there are some in Willard, in the oh gosh, in that sort of marshy part next to the beach, to the left of the beach.
Great. And
although I should point out that that part of Willard Pond and the Audubon Sanctuary is
it
mostly
in
out of Hancock, unfortunately.
Yes.
You have to wallow for leeches elsewhere.
Just outside the Hancock boundary. Oh, yes. Okay, so we have seen a couple leeches. In fact, they're in Cynthia's Pond.
Oh, really?
North American medicinal leech has been documented there.
What does that look like?
Oh, good question. Let me share my screen.
Because there are a couple of leeches I remember from childhood, and I've always wondered what they were, which kind they were.
So here's a Looks like they might be in Jack's Pond as well. This isn't a great photo. We can look at the species profile page. So this is a better photo.
Yes. What kind is that?
This is the North American medicinal leech. So it's a dark, often almost blackish back. Sometimes it can appear greenish, but it has those orange dots going down the center of the back. Great, but that's the only one in town. And I know New Hampshire has at least 3 or 4 different leech species.
Yeah.
Great, any other questions?
Steven, I'd love to ask you about what's your plan for if you had to do a big day, you know, what are your strategies? You talked about habitat diversity, but are you covering certain habitats at certain times of the day?
It's not, great question. It's not so much habitats, it's more taxonomic groups. So birds tend to be more active in the morning. So I might start with birds and my telephoto lens on early in the morning around sunrise. Prior to sunrise, I might see what moths landed on my house after I went to bed. And then I'll transition into birds. And then there's sort of a waiting period before a lot of the diurnal insects are active and flying. We think of butterflies and bees. So after the birds go quiet, I might transition to plants. And they're my fallback. Once I think I've got all the butterflies I might find in a given day and have time before the moths start again in the evening, I'll go back to plants because they're not going to move. They'll always be active, or sorry, not active. They'll always be in one location. So plants, fungi, and lichen are sort of always on the back burner whenever I have a slow period. I'll focus on those particular things. Dragonflies, I would put during the diurnal insects period, so late morning into the afternoon. Other dragonfly species are more active during crepuscular hours. So the fawn darner is active during the evening, and a lot of emerald dragonflies are more active during the evening. So I might do some evening netting for dragonflies. If you have a pollinator garden, certainly be there during the heat of the day. If possible, make sure you're hydrated. And then by nighttime, I'm back to nocturnal insects that come out just after the sun's gone down, and owls. So any other audio recordings I might get of nocturnal or crepuscular animals would be there during that time. I haven't included any fish or aquatic things yet. That is also, you know, a lunch hour activity. If you're getting too hot during the afternoon, head toward the nearest body of water to cool off and into a different habitat and see what things are there. So it all depends on, you know, your personal temperature and enjoyment. If you're bored with your backyard after 8 hours, head somewhere else and see what's there. So this is a very free-flowing event. If you just want to dedicate 15 minutes each day to this, that's fine. If you want to go crazy and do a sleepless 72 hours, you can do that too. It's really up to your own design. And I just encourage everybody to check in with the project every so often to see what our species tally is and if there's anything that's missing. So if nobody's gone fishing by Sunday, I might have to break out my fishing rod to help out in that category. If nobody's seen a sugar maple, we just overlooked it. You'd be able to head to your local or your nearest sugar maple. There might even be one in your own front yard. And so during BioBlitz events, I often overlook really common things until the last minute. And so I'm trying to check the current species tally, look through this list of species to see what's been seen so far so that we're not, you know, missing the easy ones. Great question. Any others?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Good. I'm excited about this. I'm sorry I missed the first few minutes and I may have missed one of these, the answer to my question, but we're doing the BioBlitz this weekend. And for me, it will be intermittent because I'm working on all sorts of old home day projects too. So, but will you be having another BioBlitz soon? Is this going to be a recurring sort of thing?
Great question. So I would love for it to be at least an annual event. So that would be something I'm sure the Harris Center would be on board with, and the Conservation Commission and the Old Home Days Committee. I'm sure we can make this happen each and every year.
I agree. Yeah, thanks for your enthusiasm, Deborah. I sure hope we can make this an annual event, and maybe there are some other times of the year where we should try BioBlitz activities.
I think
Absolutely.
June, is that right?
I would love that because I do post to iNaturalist and I've been doing it for over a year, but finding that carved out time is sometimes a difficult thing. And to have this incentive that we're doing this over, 3 days together as a group is a really good incentive motivator for me. So I just sort of throw that out to you.
Absolutely. And the animals we're going to find this time of year, as well as the plants, might not be out and about in May or April. So it's helpful to have a BioBlitz during different times of year to make sure
Yes.
we're capturing all of the wildlife and plants and fungi and slime molds. Can't forget the slime molds here in town. And so at least this being an annual event, working with the Harris Center, maybe forming a naturalist club for the area where we have a BioBlitz every other month or so. And so certainly open to suggestions and learning more about what people are willing to potentially commit to. So yes, I always want more BioBlitzes. They're in my blood. This is the only one we have planned for Hancock this year. The town of Chesterfield, if you'd like to travel, will be hosting a BioBlitz on their Old Home Days in September. So we're working with them, or my company's working with them for that. And so they're around, they happen in different communities, but we'll be sure to keep the Hancock happenings updated with any more BioBlitzes planned for Hancock.
Thank you.
Sure. Great. I'm excited for your enthusiasm, and it's great to see your observations, Deb, on iNaturalist.
Oh, Stephen, thank you. And I appreciate you. I do dearly appreciate when you correct my misinformation because I am such a novice. You help me learn. So thank you.
Sure. And really, I'm just passing it or paying it forward, so to speak. I've learned so much from others on iNaturalist, and I'm so thankful to share that knowledge with others. Well, I know it's just past 6:30. We should probably wrap up soon. Again, I should mention we are having an error with the registration page for the Sunday meeting, that in-person meeting. So just plan on attending, even if you can't officially register online. Hopefully that can be resolved this week. But even if it doesn't, we all know it's going to happen at the Harris Center from 9 to 11 on Sunday. If you're running into serious issues before that, reach out to Phil or myself so we can get you taken care of. And I look forward to seeing all your observations come in pretty soon. We're down to 2 days and 5.5 hours. Great. Well, thank you all.
Thank you, Stephen. Eleanor, did you have a comment? No. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Sunday as well, and actually Friday at midnight, right? That's when we can start. But that'll be a good opportunity to learn alongside you, Stephen. So I'm looking forward to being out in the field with you and learning a few tips of species identification as well. So thank you so much for your leadership on this initiative, and I'm excited about the weekend. I will see you guys in the field. Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Make sure your camera batteries are charged.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.